Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the launch of the third edition of the Inclusive Digital Economies Scorecard. It's a real pleasure to welcome you all from Africa, Europe, and the US. I will now move to the agenda of today. So we'll have the pleasure to have opening remarks today that I will introduce to you in a minute. Following the opening remarks, we will share with you the release of the data of 2021 that is now released in the new version of the website of the scorecard. The presentation of the new data will be followed by a fireside chat between our main speakers, Chris Lukoloyo today, who is our country lead in Uganda, and the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Aminah Zawedde, who has given us the honor to be part of this panel today to explain how measuring the digital transformation of Uganda has contributed to a number of changes in the policies that were made in Uganda for the digital transformation. And we'll have closing remarks from our colleague, Laura Munoz, who hopefully has made it and joined the call at this stage. So without any further ado, I believe most participants have managed to join in and chime in. I will move into the opening remarks and welcome Jean van Witter, Managing Director of the Belgian Corporation, who will give us his opening remarks.
Thank you, Karima, and I'm very glad to be here. It's a great honor, so thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm glad to meet all of you online. I have two kinds of remarks that I would like to make. The first one is about the topic, digital transformation, inclusive digital economy. And to start with a personal anecdote, last week I had to go to a doctor appointment here in Brussels, where I am based, in a brand new hospital where everything is digitalized. And to be honest, I was very pleased to see the progress that we had here in Belgium in terms of digitalization and the gain of efficiency that we can get. But at the same time, I was a bit shocked to see that older people in the hospital could not really access to the services they needed, simply because they did not have the digital skills needed to access the services. And in a way, you did not have any personnel anymore, any staff to guide the people. Everything was done electronically using a QR code. And so my reflection is about to say, yes, of course, digital transformation is needed. It's a revolution. It's a huge opportunity for development. And certainly in many transition economies, it's a way to do some leapfrogging and advance their economy faster than they would normally do. So I recognize all the benefits, but at the same time, it's a risk of leaving people behind if you don't have a very clear inclusion strategy, and if you don't recognize that it's not only about digital transformation, but about the transformation of society. And so it has to involve a lot of different actors together, private sector, government, civil society, and ensuring that all those stakeholders can help in this transition. The second type of remark I would like to do is about data. And the scorecard is about to give good data for the government. In my career, I worked first in the private sector, and then I worked for civil society, and now I work for a government agency. And one of the things that shocks me in a government agency and in the world of politics is what I call the role of perception. A lot of decision-making is unfortunately done on perception. What is the perception of a cabinet head of staff, of a minister, and maybe not sufficiently on true data. And I think we as development agency, we have a role to play in making sure that we help decision makers to come with accurate data. And so in this context, this initiative, the launch of this IDES data is a very good one. And that's why when I was asked to come, I was very pleased, because I believe it's a way to provide a scorecard to countries to make the right decision making and helping to make sure that their digital economy transition is done in a more inclusive way. So that's where the two reflections I wanted to share to start this discussion today. Maybe a few words about Enable. Enable, we are the Belgian development agency. We are working in about 20 countries in Africa, and we are a partner of UNCDF, and I'm very proud of that, and I'm very glad about this partnership, which really helps us to accompany our different partners in different countries of the world to do better. And so in this context, I'm very pleased to officially open the third edition of this global launch of IDES. And unfortunately, I'm not alone. I'm together with my friend Preeti Sinha, the Executive Director of UNCDF, and I'm very glad to give her the floor for the launch. Thank you very much, and looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you, Jean-Van Vetter, for your inspiring opening remarks. Since more than 15 years, UNCDF supported governments in embracing their digital transformation. Initially, we mainly engaged with central banks, embracing digital finance, and now in the last 5 years, with agencies involved in digital transformation, ICT, digital economy, planning authorities, to mention a few. UNCDF supports governments to make informed decisions. Our tool, the IDES, is a tool that helps them better understand the status of their digital journeys and to set the right priorities for the upcoming years. Furthermore, UNCDF supports agencies to increase their knowledge about digital transformation and support policies and regulatory changes. In the last 3 years, governments from various countries have used IDES in different ways to accelerate their digital transformation. Uganda used IDES since 2020 to set priorities, and this year, the IDES has helped them set their digital budget. Zambia leveraged IDES to draft their first national digital economy strategy, and so did the Solomon Islands and Sierra Leone. Numerous countries are using IDES to track over years the progress of their digital transformation. The tool fills a key gap in the sector: the lack of consistent, periodic, and action-oriented data to drive a successful digital transformation. All early adopters of IDES recognize that before IDES, they were blindly taking decisions about their country's digital transformation. Now, IDES helps them focus their budgets and efforts on key priorities. A unique feature of IDES is that the data collected on a yearly basis allows us to understand market changes over the years. This year's edition focuses on discussing with government partners of Uganda and the Solomon Islands the key changes that drove progress in their respective countries. With this rich information, UNCDF plays a key role in financing the growth of inclusive digital economies. For that, we use different instruments: loans to scale innovative digital economies, grants to test new business models, and loans to expand connectivity, etc. This year, our priority is to further focus on bringing women inclusiveness at the center of the discussion with our government partners. The updated methodology for the Women's Inclusiveness Score allows us to better understand the key priorities to decrease the digital divide for women. I now give the floor to my colleague, Francois Coupion, for the release of the 2021 IDES data. Thank you.
So, thank you, Jean-Van Vetter, Managing Director of Enable. And thank you, Priti Singha, for these opening remarks. So now is the time to step into the rest of the presentation for today. And I would like to give the floor to François Coupienne, who just appeared on camera. So François, over to you for the introduction of the data for 2020-21.
Well, thank you, Karima. Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Priti, I think, for these opening remarks. I think it's a great pleasure, I think, to share on behalf of our 26 member countries and partner countries the status of their digital transformation this year. You can do next slide. So my name is François Coupienne. I'm the Global Digital Lead at UNCDF. And today I would like really to give you some highlight on different topics around IDES. The first one is really to give you highlights about the evolution that we are seeing in the 26 countries from 2020 to 2021. And the second, I would like to make a deep dive on women inclusiveness. I think it's a key priority for us this year to work with our government partners on bringing, let's say, women at the center of the digital transformation. I will highlight also some key partnerships that we have, let's say, done this year in order to increase the accuracy and bringing, let's say, more tools for government partners in different countries. And finally, in order to make the transition to the fireside chat that we're all waiting for, I will just do a highlight about, let's say, the digital transformation in Uganda and the key evolution we see from 2020 to 2021. So we can go to next slide. So first of all, for the person that maybe are not really familiar with IDES, so it's a strategic tool that has been developed with, I think, 4 government partners and with government partners. We started about 3 years ago. And so really the objective, if it's updated on a yearly basis, with the objective to provide, let's say, a tool for government partners to measure and track, I think, the development of their digital economies, and really to help them to set some key priorities where they should be, let's say, focusing on together with the private sector and civil societies in the different countries. There is a key focus on inclusiveness, and you see, I think, on the right of the slide, I think, the different segments that we are tracking with the tool. So we can go to next slide. So I'm really happy to be able, I think, to share, I think, the update version of the website this year. And you will see that we are, let's say, showing the data for all the countries that you see here. And so I think the design of the website has been changed to be much more user-friendly, to have better navigation, and really to help you to have access, I think, to the different data. So if we go to the next slide, so I can just show you, for example, an example of Niger. Yes, can we go to next slide? Thank you. Yeah. All right. So let me continue. Yes, concerning. So I highlight the case of Niger. So that's the type of information you will be finding. And why do I think highlight Niger? It's because Niger is the last country and government that adopted IDES in order to drive the digital transformation. So you will be able to find its information that you see here on the left side, with really, I think, the key indicators that we have, digital economy scores, the digital inclusiveness scores, and the women inclusiveness score. And then if you go on the left side, on the right side of the screen, you will be able to see, let's say, how I think the aggregated data can be disaggregated according to the different dimensions of digital economy, policy regulation, infrastructure. We have also, let's say, innovation and skills. If we go on the next slide, also one key focus, we can go to the next slide. One key focus also that we, oh, sorry, okay. All right. One key focus that we have, it's also to be able to focus, let's say, on the inclusion. And so you will see on the website, I will share with you at the end of the presentation, I think the website, and you will be able to do a deep dive in this information. So what I would like, I think, what I would like now to share with you, it's really some key data about the evolution of digital economy these last years in the 26 countries where we are present. So first of all, you can just click for the next data. So we see that in the 26 countries where we are present, we have an average of 2 additional % in terms of the increase that we have seen in the digital transformation status in the different countries. And so we go from a score of 45% to 47%. What is interesting with IDES is that you can go, I think, then be able to go to the next step and see, let's say, where has been the main change. And so you can click, please, for the next part. And so you see, for example, in the case of the 26 country, we see that the major changes are coming, let's say, from the policy and regulatory side, and also from the infrastructure. So we see some stability on the skill level, and we see some slight, let's say, increase in terms of innovation. And then again, if you go one step further, and we can go to the next one, the tool helps you also to identify what have been the key change and what have been the key area where we have seen this change in the last year. And so if we see in the average of the 26 countries, we see that the 3% are mainly coming first from the development and existence of new policies and regulation in a lot of the countries where we are present. So it means that a lot of government partners are just working on, I think, writing and publishing, let's say, new policies and regulation on different areas of the digital transformation. Also, I think one of the key areas where we have seen the main progress this year on the infrastructures is increased connectivity. And so we've seen in most of our country, key, I say, increase in connectivity. And what do we mean by connectivity? So it's better network coverage with better quality. It's also increased access to electricity with better quality of electricity. And also the other area where we've seen a major focus is the increased ownership of technology, and mainly, let's say, ownership of phone. And so that's something that is quite consistent in the different countries where we operate. So this gives you a global snapshot about, let's say, I think the main evolution that we do. I think in the website, you will be able to go, let's say, in this level of details for the different countries, and really to be able to see, I think, the transformation that we see in these different countries. So we can go to the next slide. So let's give you a highlight on the women inclusion, let's say, where we are in 2021 in 26 countries. And why we are able to give you this data, it's because we have done, I think, a major work in really improving, let's say, I think, the data and the methodology to be able to measure women inclusion in different countries. So what we see, there is still a major gap, let's say, in all of our countries. So we have only, let's say, 60% of inclusion of women I think, in different countries. So there is still a major gap of 37%. But what is really interesting to see and to analyze is to see, let's say, where does this gap come from? And so we see that there is a major gap in terms of policy and regulation, and also in innovation. And again, if we go to you can click. And IDES also provide you, let's say, a more detailed analysis about where this gap comes from. And here I just highlight, let's say, I think the major gap that we see on women inclusion. So, for example, in terms of policy regulation, the share of women participation in parliament is really low, 43% as an average in the different countries. So we see also that we have, let's say, almost one country out of two that are using, let's say, sex disaggregate data in terms of the policy-making process. And then also what we see, there is only one country out of two that have target for women inclusion in their strategy, and mainly on the national financial inclusion strategy or national digital economy strategy. Concerning, let's say, innovation, also one of the key gaps is in terms of business ownership. Women-led enterprise, I think, still are well, let's say, beyond the number of men-led enterprise. And you see also that infrastructure and key skills, there is also some key gap that we can highlight. So again, I think the objective here is to really be able to tell you, to show you, I think, how this data of IDES can be used and how we can really help, let's say, focus on some key areas, some key gaps that we would like to fill, and making sure that we work together with the government, with private sectors, and also the civil society. So let me go to the next slide. And now I just want maybe to recognize, I think, the various partnerships that we have, let's say, in place in order to be able, I think, to provide this data and to be able to improve, let's say, all the work that we do in the coming years. So first of all, I just would like to thank, let's say, all different countries, because I think what we do is that we are really leveraging the data from the different countries, and we are getting the feedback from the different countries to be on a year-to-year basis to be able to improve the tool and making sure that the tool bring, let's say, the right added value for different partners. So all this data coming back from the country is analyzed together with, I think, our IDES reference group, and we have some key partners that have been with us since the beginning of the IDES story. And what I would like to highlight is that this year we have two new partners that are joining us from, I think, academic background. So we have the Griffith Asia Institute at Griffith University, and also the University of Zurich that is, let's say, joining us. and will be supporting us in improving the methodology this year and the coming years. We can go to the next slide. Also, let's say beyond, let's say just the tool itself, there is also key information that we would like to gather for government partners. So while they're using the tool to set priorities, I think one key component that they need also to have is some case study, learning from other countries about what is working and what is not working. So this year, we have this great partnership with, I think, the Griffith Asia Institute at Griffith University, and they are supported by the Foundation for Development Cooperation. And they've developed, let's say, 16 case study, and that's just the beginning. And it's a one-page case study on different stories from different partners in Asia and the Pacific. And I think it's really the opportunity for, I think, government partners, but also the private sectors, to be able in one page to have a snapshot of what's working or not working in different countries. And based on that, to be able to increase their knowledge about, let's say, what's happening in the world, to be then bring back that in their country and being able really to use that as a way to make, let's say, informed decision making and the right choice for their country. So thank you, I think, to Griffith Asia Institute for this great partnership. So we can go to the next slide. So let me maybe close yes, we can go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, Francois, for our participants, I just shared in the chat the link to that is appearing on the screen so that they can more easily access it.
Great, excellent.
Next screen.
No, and really objective, as I say from the previous slide, it's really also to be able to develop more and more partnership, like I think such a partnership, to be able to increase, let's say, the number of case study experience from different countries. So let me do the transition now, let's say, to the fireside chats. So concerning, I think, IDES data in Uganda, so what we see, I think, the evolution from 20 to 2021, we see that, I think, the digital economy has progressed at the same average as the market in these two countries. And in the country, from 51 to 53%, we see that inclusion has been also, there's been progress on the inclusion part. And we see that the women inclusion is at 77%. So what we will learn, I think, from the fireside chat, we see also when focusing on let's say, more in depth on the data, you will see that I think mainly this change are coming, let's say, from the infrastructure and the skill, let's say, dimension, with increased penetration of digital payment, with increased financial literacy, and the inclusion, it's mainly, I see, the increase of rural and youth inclusion. So concerning policy and regulation innovation, you will heard, let's say, from, I think, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of ICT, that a lot is being done at policy and regulation, and that we will surely see the impact of it in the coming years. So again, if you go to the website, we can go to the next slide. You will be able to have a deep dive of more information about these different parts. So let me end this presentation by sharing with you, I think, the link to the website. And so it's really a pleasure for me to be able, let's say, to give you this access to all of this data. And really, I think our objective is to make sure that the data that you will find on the website will really help, let's say, all of us to be able to support, let's say, and to work in these different countries and improving an inclusive digital transformation. So thank you very, very much.
So Francois, I will not share immediately the link in the chat because I don't want anyone to leave this room right now and go to the website because we still have a discussion to go through with the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Aminah Zawedde of the Ministry of ICT in Uganda, who gave us the honor to join us today. And she will have a discussion and conversation with our colleague, Chris Lukulyoyo, the country lead in Uganda. So without further ado, I would like to give them the floor so that they can actually tell us a bit more about how Uganda has gone through the journey with the scorecard. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Karima. Many thanks to our speakers who have come before. And I'm really glad to welcome and to introduce the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of ICT in Uganda, Dr. Aminah Zawedde. And so, Dr. Zawedde, maybe just to kick this off, because we want our colleagues on this call to learn from the Ugandan experience. We know that Uganda has been a pilot and a precursor country in using the IDES. Perhaps you could share with us some insights. Why did Uganda adopt the IDES, and how is IDES being used by government agencies to drive digital transformation?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, the presenters that have made submissions before we've had this discussion. I first of all take this opportunity to thank UNCDF for the support that you have given the government of Uganda in ensuring that we embrace digital transformation. Now, Chris, back to your question, what insights can I give? First of all, from a planning and data perspective, I think Uganda for a long time did not have data that was informing our path to digital transformation. So the pillars for digital transformation that also are indicators that the IDES tool is tracking are really key and important for us. So to us, IDES is a unique tool that I believe all countries should use to inform their investment in ICT, to inform the direction for digital transformation, and also to inform their priorities as countries, because digital transformation is broad. Sometimes you get to wonder where do I start and where do I end without information. So the IDES for us we have used it so far for 1 year, for this past year, and I'm impressed by the results that have been projected, informing the improvement, because I was so optimistic when we were adopting the IDES, said, as we are budgeting and planning and trying to know what our priorities are as a sector, let us use this tool and be able to invest, intentionally. For example, we invested less in policy development and, try to put more effort in, digitalizing processes and also, rolling out infrastructure and ensuring that we promote research and innovation as well as skill development, which we were falling short of. So for now, I think, Chris, those are the insights I can give. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, PS. And indeed, as UNCDF in Uganda, we've been quite thrilled to be working with you and to see just the desire to, as a previous speaker said, to use data, to use rather than just perception, but to use data for decision making. And we've been quite honored. Maybe another question that I have for you is that since last year, so the IDES in Uganda has guided various interventions. And of course, we've worked with you on some of these interventions on policy, on regulation. So maybe you can share with our listeners, what are some of those key interventions that are taking place currently in Uganda? Some of those policy reviews that you were talking about. I know we've done some work with the ICT cadres. So maybe you can highlight for colleagues what some of that work, the interventions that are ongoing as a result of adoption of the IDES.
Yes, the interventions that we are conducting currently is, at the start, we scored high on the regulatory and enabling environment, as well as policy. I think we were ranking about 80 to 90%. But then we were wondering if, this tool is saying we are doing so well on policy, then why is it that, we don't see results? So we have more now invested in ensuring that we invest in trying to see how we implement the policies. One of them is a policy that we have reviewed. We are under the Digital Uganda Vision, and under the ICT sector, we have a number of policies that we have found to be overlapping, and therefore that has kind of suffocated the implementation. So you find that there are some laws or policies that are intended to be regulatory policies, but are also embedded in implementation and all that. So currently we have, we are working on the Information and Communications Bill that is going to be the overarching policy for the ICT sector and to drive digital transformation, whereby we are mainly trying to see that if anything is to do with the regulation, let it be handled by one entity or agency. If it is implementation and policy, let it be handled by one. And, communication, as well, because as a Ministry of ICT, we are not only responsible for digital transformation, but we are also responsible for communication and regulation of communication. So we are working, the IDES has supported us to inform our direction in that policy. We also are working on the national guidance policy, because that policy is going to help us, inform. As we do change management, we also have to guide the nation on mindset change and that. So those are some of the policies we are working on. But then on the side of skilling, we have purposed to harmonize and rationalize the skill sets across government. The Ministry of ICT is in charge of ICT cadre across government, or ICT officers across government. So we had first of all to identify what are the skill sets required for us to do digital transformation. And UNCDF has also supported us on this agenda of ensuring that we come up with standard, we call them norms, and standard nomenclature around the ICT sector that is globally competitive. Because currently what we have only maybe talks to our ecosystem as Ugandans, but when we are to look into partnerships and collaboration, we have to be able to match up with the skill sets that are appreciated globally. So these are the things that we are looking at. We have also put emphasis on our innovation space. We have the National ICT Innovation Hub, which we are looking at, especially in terms of addressing issues of unemployment. 70% of our population in Uganda are youths who are largely unemployed. So all these measures are going to help us support on addressing the glitches that we have as a country.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Zawedde. And also, I mean, it's really good to hear, because there was the initial IDES assessment, and out of that, recognizing that, yes, even though Uganda is doing well on policy, what is that missing link? Why are we still having so many in danger of being left behind? And I think that that highlights very well the thought process that you went through to say, all right, let's see what gap we need to address. And we really thank you for that. Maybe one other question that you can help us and our listeners to answer is about, earlier on, our colleague Francois highlighted the issue of women's inclusion, and we're doing quite a lot to improve that in Uganda on women's economic empowerment. So inclusion of women in the digital economy in Uganda is at around 82% right now. And obviously, as you see that measure, it shows that based on the last measure that we had, there has been additional effort, okay? To be completely honest, we've also made certain improvements to the IDES and how we measure. But perhaps you can help us understand, those additional efforts that have been undertaken by government and the private sector to close this gap. And what are some key examples that you can highlight for us? Now, of course, on the one hand, we have women that are in danger of being left behind in the digital economy, but also we have youth. And you rightly mentioned that several of our youth in Uganda are unemployed or underemployed. And so perhaps you could share with us some examples, maybe one example for youth and one example for women, of some of those key, some of those efforts that have been undertaken by government that are geared towards closing that digital divide, especially for women and youth. And what has the government been doing to address that? Thank you so much.
Well, speaking on behalf of women, first of all, I would take this opportunity to appreciate our, the head of state, the president, His Excellency, the President of Uganda, who is intentional on promoting and empowering women. Perhaps that is the reason I'm here today. Women have been encouraged, and there's so many incentives as a country that have been put in place to promote, women empowerment and leadership, as well as closing the digital divide among youth and women. When it comes to schools and education, there are incentives for the girl child when going to the university. there are certain points that a girl gets in addition to their ordinary points in order to ensure that we have more girls entering the university. When we have projects for capacity building, there are measures and policies we put in place that, for any project, we expect that at least, excuse me, at least 30% of this project should be taken up by women. So these kind of the policies we are putting in place when we're looking for job opportunities or recruitment, we encourage women to apply. So those are some of the initiatives. But then when it comes to
Sorry, did we?
Sorry about that.
There you are.
When it comes to the innovation space and digital transformation, we have on the side of the youth, come up with an innovation fund as government to support young innovators to develop solutions that address our country's challenges. Some of them have been commercialized and adopted by government. An example is the procurement. We have a procurement system that was developed by our own Ugandans. We have also a program called the Parish Development Model. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I don't know, something choked me.
Yeah,
we have a program called the Parish Development Model that is aimed at promoting financial inclusion for all Ugandans. So with this program, we have to collect data to register households that will, in order to inform who will be given financial support and all that. So with the ministry through the Innovation Fund has developed this system that is collecting data by our own Ugandans and youth. And we're also coming up with programs to support the innovators to develop entrepreneurial skills and be able to market their products and handhold them to, to commercialization and creating employment opportunities. So sometimes we have specific programs intended for the women and others intended for youth, but also encouraging the girl child or women to uptake on these programs. We have some projects like, women in technology, so that we go and address the women and youth on how to build confidence in themselves and get involved in activities. So a number of initiatives have come up, and simply because given the fact that we have a big part of our population we have to take care of, the 70%, all programs are centered around promoting the youth and the women in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zawedde, and really useful examples there. I mean, not just the programs that are in place to ensure that more women are getting into formal education, but also I think maybe more credit also to the government of Uganda and to His Excellency, because there is also now formal communication and formal campaigns that are geared towards financial and digital literacy for women, as well as financial and digital literacy for youth. In fact, I'm aware that the Bank of Uganda, the central bank, is carrying out fairly aggressive and effective campaigns, as well as the Uganda Communications Commission. And all these are efforts by the central government. So really glad to hear some of those examples, and really glad to also have you with us, sort of highlighting those for our attendees of this session today. Let me, I think, keeping just to those 3 questions, we do have a little bit of time. So let me maybe turn it over to our audience to see if there are any questions for the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. She did issue her apologies. She has to leave sometime earlier, but since we still have her, I think it might be a good opportunity to take a couple of questions if we have any. So Karima, maybe over to you to see what we have in the Q&A
So in the Q&A right now, I do not have questions that are directly aiming at the Uganda case we have just gone through, or for the permanent secretary. I have questions that are more for Francois and you. At this stage, let me just double check the chat, just in case someone has put the question in the chat. But I guess that then that we, I think we can free the permanent secretary and let her go to her next meeting. And thank you so much for still making it despite your very heavy schedule. And we're so glad it worked out. We had never tested the connection through car drive, and it worked perfectly well. So thank you so much. It shows how strong the network is, at least in Kampala.
Yeah, yeah, we have good connectivity in Kampala.
For Kampala, you're kind of
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Apologize for having a background, having this meeting in the car, but I had to be on the move. Sorry about that.
No, we totally.
We are really glad you could join us, and it actually showcases, this is why we are trying to make sure no one's left behind, right? You can multitask, you can be efficient.
Yeah, it's all inclusive. Yes,
indeed. So thank you so much for your time, Permanent Secretary.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to getting a copy of the report.
Thank you.
So I see that now questions are starting to come through. And so I propose that maybe we take the first, Francois, if you can come back online. There was a first question in the Q&A around the users of the scorecards. Who are there? For instance, can microfinance institutions use them directly? You already kind of provided a first answer, but maybe for our audience, it's useful maybe if you can share your answer more broadly in the call. And then there will be another one about the regions.
Yes, and thank you. First, thank you for the Permanent Secretary for sharing our experience with IDES, and thank you, Chris, also for moderating this discussion. Now, concerning, I think, who is using IDES, the point is that I think I answered a little bit in the chat, but so initially when we developed IDES, mainly the primary, user was government partners. And so what do we mean by government partners? Could be, I think, really the agencies that are driving digital transformation in their country. Could be Ministry of ICT, Ministry of Digital Economy, could be of Ministry of Aviation and Communication, like we have in Solomon Island, but also Ministry of National Planning Authority. But what we see more and more is that also IDES provide the opportunity for more government agencies to come together within, the digital transformation journey. And for example, I was about 3 weeks ago in Burkina Faso on a training on IDES. And so there was an opportunity. We had the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Energy, that were there together to better learn, about the digital transformation. So that's the part from the maybe public sectors. The other user of IDES are international organizations. And so we have seen in several countries, some donors, international organizations have been using IDES to be able also to set their own priorities and to try to better understand, the status of development of the digital transformation in the country where they operate. And from there to be able to see, what should be done and where should be the priorities. And last part is concerning the private sectors. So we have some case of, different organizations using IDES. I think if you are MFIs, and that you're operating in a country, I think IDES can give you an opportunity to better understand what is the status of the development of digital transformation and see what are, the strengths and weaknesses in your countries. Is it, for example, digital ID? Is it digital payment? Is it digital skills? And based on that, help you also in terms of defining your own digital transition within the MFIs. So I think I will stop here for this question.
Yeah, the second question that came in, so I'm taking them in their order, was about Latin America and the Caribbean. Are we using the scorecards for that particular region in the world? Can you just maybe give a quick answer on that one?
Yes, so for the moment, I think we have implemented IDES in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. And so we are partnering, I'd say it's mainly because I think UNCDF is based in these countries and we are leveraging our team in these different countries. We're also partnering with UNDP in some countries. For example, we've done in Morocco, in Mauritania. So I think according to the partnership and according, I think the interest of different countries, we could go, let's say, beyond these countries. But for the moment, we have not been able to go in these countries.
Okay, then the next point is about the scoring and the different countries obviously included in the scorecard for now. And the question goes very straightforward. Are we comparing apple for apple? Because each country is very different, has its own peculiarities. So how are we managing that?
Okay. So concerning, I think the score of IDES. So IDES is a methodology. So we have the same, I think, methodology and framework that we are applying in the different countries. And as we say, you will see on the website, our objective is not, I think, to compare countries against countries. Our objective is to compare countries over years and really to bring, let's say, government agencies in these countries, I think, the right tool in order to be able to track the digital transformation. So we are not positioning ourselves as a global index that comparing country between each other. So we are really positioning us as providing a strategic tool for government partners to be able to track their digital transformation over time. So you will never see, I think, comparison of data about IDES from countries to countries. And so why do we do that? There is a specific reason. So we are using some global data sets that are available worldwide and that's comparing all of this country. And then also we are using for the missing data, we are using also national source of data. And so objective is also to be able to work with the countries in improving, let's say, the data collection in the country. So if we have some local data source from, I think, Bureau of Statistics and Statistical Office, so we are working with the country in using the data and making sure that over years they're improving, let's say, the data they are using in order to drive the digital transformation. So really our focus is really to focus on government partners in country and equip them with the right tool to be able to track the digital transformation.
And so maybe I'm just re-showing this slide to actually help people who are not yet familiar with the scorecard to understand what are the different pillars and what is actually measured in the different pillars. Because there is also another question coming through that is in the chat. So let me just pull that up. And for some reason it disappeared. Let me see. So yeah, it's about how transparent are we about the data and how can it be checked. Maybe you can comment about how the data is collected and what are the different, maybe repeat who are the different stakeholders involved. So maybe to answer this question that's come through about the data itself.
So you will see on the website, I think for each country, we are explaining, let's say, what is the level of involvement that we have with the government. And so you have three status. Either the data has been collected by UNCDF, but has not been, let's say, reviewed with the government of the country. We have some countries where are currently reviewing the data and some country where it has been reviewed and it has been adopted by the government. So as I say, we have some global data source that we are using, let's say, for all countries. Then we are working internally also to collect the data based on evidence that we have in the different countries. Then when we are working with the government, really the objective is, I think, is to double check this data with the government and making sure that the data is making sense for them. And so, for example, we have done in country like Malawi, in country like Burkina Faso, in Solomon Island, in Zambia. So I think the team on the ground has been organizing this session to review, I think, the data with the government to making sure that the data is, I think, is aligning, I think, with the data that they have in the country and making sure that they can leverage this data and use it for the digital transformation.
Okay, I think before we go to the closing remark, I think there's an interesting question. So what else do you want to measure that you haven't been able to and that you hope you can incorporate in the tool in the future? Is there something we're still not completely there yet or would like to add?
No, I think we all need to admit that, and that was mentioned by the permanent secretary. I think before IDES, she was taking maybe blindly decision because she has no data. So I think IDES is filling a key gap to be able to provide, let's say, I think, a basic set of data that help, let's say, government in setting priorities. But unfortunately, a lot of data is missing. Yes, for sure. I think the work that we did in women inclusion, I think we've been able to dig to have all of the data. But I think there is a lot of data missing about, let's say, a lot of key segments, about youth, about refugee, about, let's say, migrants, about a disabled, let's say, elderly person. So I think over years, really objective is to be able to fill this gap of data. I think with global data source, but also with the involvement of, I think, of the government partners in different countries. So, and that's why also we have this partnership with different, let's say, organizations in academy in order to be able to step by step fill this data gap that we have in all countries.
So there's just a couple more that I would like just to flag to you. So one that's interesting about climate impact. Will that be included in the future? I'm not sure you can answer this right away. There's also a question about adding a country. Someone's interested in seeing Zimbabwe potentially integrated in the IDES. And already a question about the data for 2022. So when will we release the 2022 data? So
let me
quickly.
Let me first start the data 2022. I say why. So the point is that most of the global data source that are updated in 2022 are with data from 2021. So if you take ITU data, if you take World Bank data, if you take, I think, the Global Innovation Index, so in 2022, they have updated the data for 2021. And so that's why we are doing also this IDES exercise with a country in May and June, based on this data from 2021. So that's the point. So the next version of 2022 will be done, let's say, in 1 year, when we'll have, let's say, the data also for 2022 available from global data source. Zimbabwe, yes, that's true. For the moment, I think we'll not be able to do Zimbabwe. Again, I think it's for Latin America and Caribbean, according to opportunities and maybe the buying from different government, we'll be keen, I think, to be able to go to this country. So I think, yes, the point concerning the climate, no, for the moment, we don't have this, I think, this dimension into the tool. Maybe, I think, as I say, it's a dynamic tool that we're improving every year. So I cannot tell you, let's say, tomorrow what will be, let's say, include in the next version of IDES, but maybe if at a certain moment climate impact is something that is a request or say a request by a government, maybe that could be something that would be taken into consideration.
Okay, so and in case the question is about, will you send the questionnaire or will it be added online, for still coming back to the question about adding new countries. So all the data that is available is on the website. It was shared, and I'm going to reshare it here. That is shared in the chat. So you can go and check the data that is now available for the 26 countries, if I'm correct, on the platform. And like was described, the collection of the data happens through discussions and conversation with the different stakeholders in the country and through the work that we're currently running in those countries, because as we work, we also collect data within our team at UNCDF. So that's the main source of data. So the national source of data, like Francois mentioned, plus extra data that we also collect through our work in the countries. There is also a comment from colleagues. So there's ask for more countries, ask for more collaboration. So our partner WSBI is offering a discussion to explore how we could eventually combine version with the tool that they're currently developing right now. So thank you very much all for your contribution. I propose that we move now to the closing remarks that our colleague Laura Munoz has prepared for us. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Laura, who's now up on the screen and who will share with us in particular how we want to make sure that this tool focuses on women's digital inclusion. Over to you.
Thank you, Karima. Thank you. And thank you everyone for being with us in this launch of the third edition of the IDES scorecard with a specific focus on women. I would like to start wrapping up by reminding us why it is important that we focus explicitly on women inclusiveness. There are obvious ethical reasons, but there are also economic reasons. GSMA estimates that $700 billion could be added to the global GDP if we manage to close the gap in terms of mobile internet usage for women. For this reason, we are pretty much concerned, and we decided to do a deep dive in the methodology to improve the accuracy of the Women Inclusiveness Score. As my colleague Francois said, this is a living tool, and we hope to improve it over time, especially in terms of the missing data that still exists. I can only be very thankful to all the institutions that help us with improvements of the Women Inclusiveness Scorecard, for helping us improve it and for owning the tool, because this is not intended to be just our tool, but everyone's tool at the disposal of the public good. Thank you to UNDP, the World Bank, UN Women, CICAP, GSMA, the European Union, Paris 21st, ITU, UNDISA, and so many others. And I'm sorry if I don't have the time to mention you all. I would also like to just remind us that the gap is still there. We see an average inclusion rate of 63% for women, but there are still major gaps. Please note that the women's share of participation in parliaments is only at 43%. And even more shocking, gender ratio in business ownership is only at 33%. Sex disaggregated data by governments is at 55%. Or specific targets around women inclusiveness at national strategies, it can be financial inclusion strategies or digital inclusion strategies, it's only at 50%. So there is still an important road ahead. And we hope that different governments, different countries, we will work together to bridge these gaps. It is crucial that we focus on key actions that we can put in place to bridge these gaps. And I would love to maybe mention some of the actions that our guest, Dr. Zawedde, the Permanent Secretary in Uganda, mentioned. For example, the promotion of girls in universities or the promotion and projects for women in technology. There were also the active campaigns from the government to improve financial and digital literacy for women and for youth. And not only for women, but also young girls and youth. Dr. Zawedde also mentioned the Innovation Fund to support youth to develop solutions that address the challenges of the country. As the UNCDF global lead, I'm particularly excited when I hear about these type of interventions. And I hope IDES tool will be used and will help different governments to identify those key actions and those priorities where we can put our energies. So thank you everyone for being here with us. I would also like to thank the participants and the guests to this important event. Jan van Wetter, Managing Director from Enabel, our Executive Secretary, Preeti Sinya, as well as my colleagues, Francois Coupien for all the hard work, Chris Lucolio, Karima Wardak. And thank you, all of you, for being here with us, and looking forward to seeing you. And we are at your availability, at your disposal to answer any question, to engage on the IDES scorecard. This is everything from our side.
Thank you very much, Laura. And with that, I propose that we close this webinar. Thank you very much. And yes, we will share the recording through email with all of you, but also the people who could not make it despite their registration. So till then, and the next session is planned for tomorrow, where we will focus on Solomon Islands. We've been publicizing this session also on social media if you are interested. It's going to be very, very early for people in Africa, but you might still be particular for West Africa, but if you're in East Africa, you might want to make it for that session too. Voilà. Thank you. Goodbye, and have a good rest of the day. Bye.